Hi everyone, Rocker here. Today I want to talk very briefly about what's been happening on FetLife and particularly among Goreans online for the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago there was a thread that was started in the new Coliseum, the old round table, whereas Nyre ended up starting a thread about a friendly reminder. And it was basically her laying down the mandate for Goreans that if you happen to have any pictures of family or family get-togethers or family members or whatever that was linked in some form or fashion to FetLife or other media, is that that she was coming after you. And what had happened about a month before that, interestingly, I actually received some emails from the FetLife caretakers. And what it is that you had people like Malkinius, Nyre, Warlock, which is Nyre's little bitch. He's been involved in some form or fashion as well. But when I received some of these emails from the caretakers, it was basically about some of the pictures that were on my account. And that they pulled one picture saying that there's underage children in there, da 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 da. And so I responded back, and I ended up linking them with these people's Facebook accounts so that they can get verification of the fact that these people are 19, 20, 21 years of age. Now I found it odd at the time. Why the attention to my profile? Why the attention to my websites? Same thing happened on my blog website, on the Ontario Gorean Gathering website, on my Realm of the Purple Rose website, on my YouTube website. They contacted Twitter. They contacted all these different websites, basically trying to either get things pulled or trying to get me booted off. And I found that quite amusing. So, and then this thread shows up in the round table. Now the timing is not coincidental. It is the same people that are doing these things. Malkinius has been basically trying to go at me for the last 2-3 months, basically because I called him out in the fact that he was booted out about a year ago from the Chicago Gore group. And so he's been going around telling anybody and everybody that will listen to him that that he's actually the victim, that people are picking on him, that he never sexually assaulted anybody, yada yada yada, which is all bunk. Everybody knows that he did. He's never actually fessed up to it. In fact, I remember one time Bray in the old Coliseum, the original Coliseum, actually asked him point blank, Malkinius, did you end up groping that girl? And you know what Malkinius' answer was? Oh, I'll message you offline. I'll send you a private message. He couldn't say in the thread, yes, I did sexually assault a girl. Obviously, he couldn't say that. But at the same time, he couldn't say, no, I did not sexually assault the girl, if that was the actual truth, because he knew that Krell, the girl, and numerous other people would know outright that he was lying. So what does he says? I'll send you a private message. And then shortly after that, he comes back and he says, oh yeah, and we're dealing with this thing with Alec, very quietly and discreetly, but it's going to be dealt with and he will be paying the price, blah, 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 blah. And it was shortly after that, caretakers started contacting me. I got messages from different administrations of different websites that I run. And it was just, it's not coincidental. This is all a planned, concerted effort. Now, getting back to this thread that Nyre started in the new Coliseum, or the round table, is basically what ended up happening is that, and I didn't know it at the time, is that there was another girl that's been Gorean for years. And she is someone that I actually do respect, because she has actually done a lot in her community. She's actually done a lot away from the computer. And she's honest about things. She's a pagan. She's a Wicca. She's also she's involved in a lot of different things. And kudos to her for being out there. And I admire that, the fact that she is open, that she is honest, and that she doesn't give a shit what anybody else thinks. But anyhow, is that Nyre, Warlock, and some others basically went after her, because apparently she had some pictures of her family that were linked to her profile. And so they end up contacting there's an online radio show that she runs, that she's a DJ at, I guess. And they end up contacting them, basically accusing her of child exploitation, and this is terrible, and you can't have her representing Gore, and blah 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 blah. And they end up basically locking her out of one of her accounts. She wasn't able to get on the show to do her show. Now the key things with this is the fact that who would go and take the time to go through her profile, mine through her profile, get this information, and then contact people outing her that are not on FetLife, that are not Korean, and basically trying to out her and make her life miserable. Does this sound familiar? A few years ago, Nyre did the same thing with Dragon. I've mentioned this numerous times in my blog, and I've talked about it a couple of times in YouTube, the fact that these are dangerous people, and these are the reasons why. Is that when you stand up against them, they will go out of their way to try to silence, to try to intimidate, or try to get you banned from things. If you disagree with them, they will go to the nth degree to try to shut you up and chase you away. A few years ago, Nyre started throwing around, and whoever would listen, sending emails out of a copy of a forged document about Dragon, about his criminal record, about the custody case, etc., etc., etc. Now, some of these things didn't really add up, and she tried giving it to me one point, and I basically blasted her for it because I didn't really give a shit. And I asked her point blank, why are you sending this to me? I never asked for it. Why are you doing this? And she got all upset. Well, I thought you should know. We need to do something about this. And I right away basically shot her down and said, no, there is no we in this. I'm not on your side. I'm not on Dragon and Braze and Raptor's side. I'm on nobody's side. You know, I'm neutral in this case, and neutral in this whole situation between the two camps, and keep this fucking shit out of the Gorean gathering place. Now, when I looked at the document, there's a lot of things that were in discrepancy, and if anyone that has actually seen court documents, and I've seen numerous of them because I've been involved with the legal system as far as being a liaison with different groups, and also being on different board of members, you get legal documents all the time, and it didn't really add up. And I knew that there was going to come a point where I was going to be traveling down to Dragon's area. And one of the reasons for going down was to be able to get a friend of mine to be able to get an actual copy, a hard copy of the actual document. And they were able to get it, which is all done through the Freedom of Information Act. If you throw a little money out there, it's amazing what you can get. And I compared the two. And the one that Nyre has been sending around was a fake. It was a forge. It wasn't just sent to me, she sent it out to numerous people. And there are people that are watching this video, well, remember, they have received it. And it came from Nyre, or it came from Malkinius, or possibly it might even have come from BearofAr. Now, BearofAr, I hope that he wouldn't do something like that, but with what's been happening lately, you know, I'm not exactly sure what this guy's up to. Now, you had that as far as with Dragon, that Nyre and the people from Silk&Steel that have been involved in. There's also another time where Nyre definitely went out of her way, and she was letting everybody know what what he did for a living, and that somehow that they needed to stop him from doing his job. That he was emotionally unstable, that he was mentally unstable, etc., etc. And people that are watching this video will remember that she went on a campaign for a while to try to out him on his job. It has actually said on FetLife what he did do for a living, which is nobody's business. Again, I'm going to state that again. That is nobody's business. that is outing people that you do not have that right to be able to do. You know, it's just unbelievable. So you have Chaos, that was outed concerning her radio program. You have Dragon, that was been outed numerous times, and apparently he's actually was hassled at his former workplace with phone calls to his manager of where he worked, etc., etc. You have Prey, as far as being outed concerning what he did for a living, and there is a little bit of a campaign to try to get him fired regarding that. You know, the list just goes on and on and on. Now, people have often asked me, well, why are you so hung up on Silk&Steel? And again, I really don't give a rat's ass about Silk&Steel, but it's the people that are involved. The people that continue to try to say that this was a great thing, and that they, you know, that they are the voice of gore, and they're the gatekeeper of gore, etc., which is all absolute bullshit. You know, when I first found out about Silk&Steel was basically when Selena and Mark went to visit Malkinius at one of his house gatherings. And I've talked about this before. And while they were there, things were good for the first day. And then Mark had to leave and travel somewhere else on business for a couple of days. And it was arranged that Selena could stay behind. It was a bad mistake on their part because they really didn't know Malkinius except what Malkinius said about himself. That he was this great person, that he's been around for years, that he's read the book 10 times, and da-da-da-da-da. But they didn't realize what he was all about. And when Selena was left alone, she was sexually assaulted. Is that Malkinius took runs at her numerous times, trying to say, oh, you should be with me, you shouldn't be with Mark, and da-da-da-da-da, and like just a whole bunch of nonsense. And when Mark got back and picked Selena up and they ended up going home, is that it was a quiet ride. And it wasn't until they almost got home that Selena finally broke down and said, you know, Master, I need to tell you what's been happening. And they got home, and Mark was pissed. Oh, fuck, was he pissed. He almost turned around and went back and kicked the door down. And I'm telling you, if it had been me at that moment, if I had been in that situation, I would have. I would have turned that car around and I would have gone right back and kicked the door. And I'm sorry, but that's just me. You don't do shit like that. You especially don't do shit like that with my family. My extended family, my chosen family. You don't fuck around with shit like that. So anyhow, they got home and they talked and they tried working it through, and then they contacted me and said, hey, we got a situation. We don't know what to do. Do we call the cops? What do we do here? It's a different country now. We're back in Canada. What do we do? So I went over and I didn't have a clue who the fuck this clown was, and so I you know, they sat down, they told me everything, and I said, well, here, let me start message him and basically try to get an apology or an acknowledgement or whatever out of this guy. And so I started emailing him, and of course Malkinius comes back with, who are you, and you know, you're a BDSMer, and you're a da-da-da-da-da, which has absolutely fucking nothing to do with what was happening at that point. Is that Selena had been sexually assaulted, the fact that Malkinius was taking numerous runs at her, and basically tried to break them up. Like, just stupid shit like that you don't do. You just don't do. So anyhow, so through the emails, things got fairly heated, and I knew where Malkinius lived. Selena and Mark had just been there. You know, I had the address that I could have gone down and dealt with it. And at one point, Malkinius came back and said, you know, well, it was her fault if she shouldn't have been left here, and da-da-da-da-da, and the master, what kind of a master is he if he's going to leave his girl behind, and yada, yada, yada. And at that point, you know, I basically called Malkinius, you know, called him out and everything, and told him that he was a sexual predator, that he sexually assaulted her, and that cops should be involved. Selena and Mark, they decided not to do that. Number one, because it was a different country and everything else. And number two, they just wanted to put it behind them. So they cut ties with Malkinius right off the bat. And at that point, Malkinius, he's always denied that it ever happened. you know. And so ever since then, people have wondered, well, what's going on with between me and Malkinius? That's where it started, right then, is when he fucking lied to my face, and then tried to blame her for his actions. That's when things started. And lately, you have Bear has come back. Now, Bear's a special case. And Bear's one of these guys that if you listen to him and long enough, is that he'll tell you that he found Gore, that he started the movement online, etc., etc., etc. The interesting things about him that have just come out in the last couple of days, which is quite interesting, is the fact that he says that he became Gorian, a real-life Gorian, in 1980. And then yesterday, in the Gorian gathering place, one of the last comments he said in the thread about, Gorians that are hiding, shouldn't speak for those that are offline, is saying that, he said that he started meeting Gorians in 1997. I'm taking him at his word. Okay, that's probably true. So for 17 years, he didn't meet any Gorians offline. Then all of a sudden, 97, which is when Silk&Steel actually had 2 or 3, I'm not sure how many gatherings they had. They didn't have that many because it didn't last that long before it blew up. But for about 5 years or less, is that he started meeting other people from within the Silk&Steel group. And then when he blew Silk&Steel up, when he has a little hissy fit and his meltdown, and he ended up basically blowing it up and deleted the entire Silk&Steel website, is that from then till basically about 8 years ago, he was completely offline. He never met anybody. He didn't have any accounts. He wasn't active everywhere. So basically roughly around 2000, 2002, 2003, till basically roughly 2010, so about 7-8 years, is poof, he disappeared. Then he came back and he came on the FetLife and started up the round table and everything else, and started going on promoting about, oh yes, we're this and we're that and everything else, and we live offline and da 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 da. But he said that he hasn't started meeting Gorians until 1997. And we know already, and this has been proven over and over again, is the fact that he also said that he has a free companion of 30 years. He has a slave for 21, 22, 23 years, yada, yada, yada. That's been a constant that he's always had on his profiles, that he's had these two individuals. Now, the funny thing, again, going on with Bear, is the fact that, okay, so he met Gorians in real life, met them face to face for roughly about 5 years, since 1980. Do the math. Okay, that's roughly 38 years that he says that he's been Gorian. He's actually met some people supposedly for about 5 years, and even during that 5 years when he says that he met people, no one has ever met his free companion. He says that possibly one person might have met his slave, but that was well, maybe, this person did and maybe they didn't, but, so one person, might have met my slave one time. Isn't that odd? He's also had some, I'm not sure how many, but he has had some online slaves that he was in a role-playing, online relationship with. And none of these slaves, when they called him at home, that the free companion or the slave that supposedly lives with him, neither one of them ever answered the phone. Neither one of these people, his free companion and the slave, have ever had their own profile. Neither one of these people, his free companion and his slave, have ever been online, have ever talked to other girls, have ever talked to other free women, have ever talked to other slaves, have ever talked to any other masters. That's odd. There's no pictures of Bear and his free woman and his slave anywhere. That's also odd. If you have a slave and you have a girl and you go on with the whole chest pounding, yes, I'm the leader of the community and I've been Gorean since this year, da 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 da, you think you would be proud and that you would want to show pictures of the person that you love and that you care for, and that's important in your life. Most other Goreans that I know that are open and that are honest is that they have pictures on their profiles. It's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, I can't show my picture because, you know, I'm an FBI undercover agent that's involved in a very dangerous, you know, espionage ring and da 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 da. It's all, you know, all bullshit stuff. But there's never any pictures of anything. These people do not exist. And then the other thing with Bear is that yesterday that was amusing and is the fact that he ended up, you know, basically making the statement that somehow or another that I was a part of their group at one point and that I got kicked out. Absolute bullshit. You know, I was never a part of Silk&Steel. Never had any desire. In fact, the exact opposite. I've kept those people at arm's length. Number one, because of Nyre, with all the lying that she's done. She lied about as far as Avi, that supposedly Avi stole money from me. You know, shortly after that, when I called her on that she left a Gorean gathering place. And then she's been going on this tyrant ever since. You know, if you look at her profile, look at her status updates, everything else, she constantly has been taking shots at me ever since. You have Malkinius that's still working on trying to get something going as far as, you know, shutting down some of the profiles and the fact that with him being a sexual predator and me actually calling him that. And it's not one girl, it's been numerous girls. You had Selena, which is, she lives just a few miles from me here. Get together regularly with her and Mark, with their family, with their children. You have Zarius and Talina. A situation happened with that. And then you have the latest thing that ended up happening at the Chicago Gore Homestone event. Now the interesting thing about that, and I'll put the video down below as far as the culmination of that, or the blog below that, so that can be linked, is the fact that Krell and all those people have always denied that this never happened. And yet, every time that they talk, they all acknowledge that, well, yeah, is that an apology was given, or yeah, well, it was just an overbearing hug. No, it wasn't. She was intentionally groped in her breast. She intentionally had her ass grabbed, and Malkinius intentionally tried to basically stick his tongue down her throat. All against her will, all unconsensual. Malkinius is one of these scum that the way that he operates is that he'll wait until a master of a girl that he has an eye on leaves the room, and then he makes his move. He did that with Selena. He waited until Mark had left. He did that with Talina, which is Zarius' girls. He waited till Zarius left. And he did it with CMZ concerning Garen. He waited until Garen left, and then he made his move. And then he does this whole power trip thing about, well, you know, you should do this because you're supposed to be a slave and you're supposed to serve all the masters, and what kind of a girl are you if you're going to go running telling your master, or da-da-da-da-da, he's not a real master anyway, blah, 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 blah. All bullshit. Those are all predatory natures. Now I'm going on this tangent again about Malkinius. But, anywho, Silk&Steel. Dangerous people. Don't give them any information, any real personal information on you, because they will use that against you. You have people like Nyre, like Warlock, Malkinius, even BearofAr, I do believe now, is that they will use that information against you. Is they will contact different people that if you end up standing up against them, they will basically try to silence you, make your life miserable, or try to basically get you banned from things. Pretty pathetic. You have a difference of opinion. Big deal. But to go out of your way and intentionally trying to out people and threatening to out people, or actually going to the point, whereas even in the new Coliseum, the round table last week, is that people actually went to this online administration to have chaos kicked off. The reasons why? It wasn't any real heated argument. It's the fact that Nyre all of a sudden had it in her mind, hey, we should not have any pictures of family or anything on on our linked in any fashion or form to our FetLife account. And anybody that does, I'm going to go after them. And I'm going to get them booted off. Or I'm going to make their life a miserable hell. And she did that. These are dangerous people. Telling you again, these are dangerous people. These are regular things that have happened. And the amount of nonsense is it's incredible what they've done. You have sexual predators. In the old Silk&Steel, there was money that was stolen. It is at one point they used to gather money. And someone was having a divorce, and instead of the money going to the group, he ended up using that money to help pay for some of his divorce cost. You have people that have defended sexual predators. You have people that still allow Malkinius to be able to promote his house gatherings, even when everybody knows what he's like, and he's never apologized, and he's never actually taken responsibility for any of these things. He's always blamed the girl, or he's always come off with the I'm a victim and everybody's out to get me, poor me. No, it's his own fucking actions. He can't keep his hands to himself, and he can't stop being such a boastful, pig-headed pig. As far as if there's a girl that belongs to somebody else and she's wearing somebody else's collar, you show respect to that master. Falling all over them and groping him and trying to play this whole game that, well, I'm better than he is, and oh, I'm going to piss off the master by going after his girl. Absolute nonsense. And I've talked about this before. People like that needs to be put in their place. You're not going to do that by trying to reason with them. You can't. They'll come up with every excuse underneath the sun, and then they'll end up blaming the girl. Basically, you see it happening, you go over to him and you clock him. Done. Over and done with. The message gets out there, and everyone else will leave that girl alone. Never happened. This whole, well, we need to bring this before the council or before this. Is like, why are you letting other people make decisions on your property about what should be done? You're the fucking master. Stand up and look after her. Protect her. It's your call. It's her call. It's nobody else's call. But Chicago War seems to operate that way. Silk&Steel seems to operate that way. It's a lot of nonsense. Closing. So anyhow, you have Bear that's been around since 1980, if you believe what he says on his profile. And he says that he started meeting Goreans offline in 1997. He met Goreans at some Silk&Steel events for about 4 or 5 years. And then he blew up Silk&Steel, ended up disappearing, came back about 8-9 years ago to FetLife, and now he's on FetLife again, and he's carrying on with the whole thing, well, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm living offline, blah, 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 blah. But he's never met any Goreans offline since basically 2000. You have Malkinius and Nyre, which just live a few miles away. And the three of them are basically the three biggest mouthpieces on FetLife. As far as, yes, we're the gatekeepers of Gore, and we've been around for years, and we know everything, and da-da-da-da. These three people have never met. That's odd. With Bear going on about his free companion and his slave, he's 30 years and 20 some odd years. No one has ever talked to them on the phone. No one has ever talked to them online. There's never been any profiles anywhere. These people do not exist, except the fact that in Bear's imagination. Oh yes, I have this and this. There's no evidence anywhere. Now you would think that if you had even an online slave, and you got her calling you, or doing Skyping or whatever, you'd think somewhere along the line that one of these girls, unless they're locked in the basement, is that they would end up answering the phone. You'd think that one of these girls would want to take the initiative. Hey, my master's playing with somebody online, role playing. I want to talk to them. That's just common stuff that people do. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're bringing someone else in, you'd think somewhere along the line that there would be an introduction and some interaction. never has happened. Never, not once. Even when Bear was going out to events within the Silk and Steel realm, the girls never went. Odd? Very odd. The whole thing just stinks to high heaven as far as the lies that are out there. And then the biggest thing is, and the reason for this video that pissed me off a little bit, is the fact that when Bear said yesterday, the fact that we handed you, kicked you out, and we did this, and we kicked your butt to the curb, da 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 da. It's like, no, I've never been in Silk and Steel. I've never been a part of IRC. I've never been involved with any of these people. Never been in their groups as far as, being one of them or wanting to be one of them. Just absolute bullshit. So, that's it in a nutshell. Is, Silk and Steel is a lot of smoke and mirrors. But when you start peeling off the layers, kind of thing, and there's a lot of lies that are happening there. You have Malkinius, which is a sexual predator, and sexually assaulted numerous people. And then, in fact, he goes on about how many times he's read the books, blah, 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 which is just utter nonsense. You have Krell, and I like Krell. He seems like a half-decent guy, but at the same time, the fact that he's defended Malkinius to the hilt, and that he came into the Gorian gathering place and he lied to my face. The fact that these things didn't happen, and that it was unsubstantiated and unfounded evidence. Absolute bullshit. The girl came and testified, Garen came in and testified, several other people contacted me privately and said, yes, this stuff did happen. And then they went on this whole, well, Rocker's a gaslighter and Rocker's a bully and da 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 da. No, I'm just sticking to my guns. This did happen. And until they actually admit that it happened, I will continue to warn people. It's an unsafe place to go. Plain and simple. And then you have Bear going on, with this little tangent that he had a couple of days ago in the Gorian gathering place with me, kind of thing, is that fact, wow, we did this to you and da 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 da. Absolute nonsense. But he did let it slip, is the fact that he said several things that things don't add up. As he says he's been a real Gorian since 1980. Look at his profile. And yet yesterday he said that he started meeting Gorians in 1997. That's a 17-year span where he's been playing online. Then from 97 till roughly 2000, 2002, so 4 or 5 years, let's say, is that Silk and Steel existed. They had a few get-togethers. His girls never went because they don't exist. And then he had some kind of a big argument going on and ended up blowing up Silk and Steel. Poof, it was gone. So from basically 2000, 2002 roughly till basically 8 years ago, 2010, he completely was gone. So about 8 years, completely gone, nobody had contact, whatever. And then he came back around 2010 on FetLife, started up the Gorian gathering, or the Gorian Roundtable, and has been around ever since. Now, for someone that brags about being offline, and yes, we live life offline and everything else, you would think that you would be meeting Gorians since 1980. You'd think that you would be meeting Gorians, say, in the last 20 some odd years. He hasn't. He's never met Malkinius, never met Krell, he's never met anybody since Silk and Steel. Now, the reasons why, I don't know. But for someone that continues to promote community and real life Gorians and this kind of things, the fact that it's odd that he's afraid and unwilling to meet with other Gorians. Nyre, she might have met with Lionheart. I don't know if she has or not. But outside of that, she's never met with any other Gorians. Malkinius has his little gatherings and he's pushing it all over the place. So I know that he does. But he can't behave himself. And he continues to fuck up and continues to get himself into trouble. Krell tries, and I know that he means well, but the fact that on this particular issue, as far as the sexual assaults that have taken place in his homestone, that he denies ever happened, he's taken responsibility. And the fact that, okay, as a leader, you're lying to my face and you're saying these things didn't happen. And you've told numerous people that these things didn't happen when all the facts point to the opposite. Numerous people have come forward and said these things happen. You've even acknowledged Malkinius' slave, even acknowledged, numerous people acknowledge, okay, well, people did apologize and it wasn't that big of a deal and da 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 da. Okay, so did it happen or did it not happen? Why are people apologizing if there was never anything that happened? It did happen. CMC was groped with her breasts, her ass was grabbed, and she was forcibly kissed. It was done by Malkinius to basically get back at Garen. Had nothing to do with the girl. It was him going on his little power trip trying to get back at Garen and piss him off. You can't do those kind of things. It's unacceptable. It's intolerable. And unfortunately, it should have been dealt with right there, right then. But it wasn't. And so it was allowed to fester for a couple of months, and there was emails going back and forth, and Malkinius was threatening to out Garen if he didn't shut up, and tried intimidating him, blah, 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 blah. They got in the leadership of Chicago Homestone kind of thing. What ended up happening is that the reasoning came back, well, we can't say this actually happened because now Rocker knows about it, and it's been talked about in the Goring Gathering Place. So we'll just say that Malkinius and Garen, that they can't get along, and so they're both booted out. There's never any mention of the fact that the sexual assault actually took place. And that's what this whole thing was about, was the sexual assault. They've never accepted responsibility. They've never acknowledged that it's actually happened. Meanwhile, there's all these apologies that have happened back and forth and everything else, and then Krell coming back with the famous, oh, it wasn't a sexual assault, it was just an over-aggressive hug. Unbelievable. Anyhow, this is my beef today, just giving you some facts. But the fact that, these people from Silk&Steel, they're dangerous people. What happened in the Gorian Roundtable, last week with Chaos, absolutely pathetic. Should never have happened. People should be up in arms and basically slamming Nyre on that and saying, hey, you're going to lose your mod ship as far as the group that you're running. That one of Bear's group, that she's actually one of the moderators, you're going to lose that for a while. You can't be doing shit like that. You can't be outing people. You can't be contacting other people and then making up all this shit about child exploitation and da 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 da. Just because you don't think that she should, you can't be doing stuff like that. Nyre's done the same thing with me over and over and over again. From Abby having money stolen to now apparently one of the latest things is the fact that I'm asking Nyre for money in a plane ticket someplace. I don't have a fucking clue what she's talking about. But she is a nutcase. I've said it numerous times, and I'll continue to say it. She's over-emotional. She's unstable. And what she did to Chaos, and what she did to Dragon, and what she's done to Bray, and what she's doing to me are examples. She is reaching way beyond the boundaries that she should be involved in. When you're outing people, contacting people, trying to, making forged documents and passing them around, telling people about other people, what they do for a living, and trying to get them fired from their jobs, you've gone way beyond what you should be doing. Way beyond. These things need to stop. Anyhow, thank you for watching, and have a great day.